Right now, there is a tree outside your window that has been alive longer than anyone you know. It has no brain, no nervous system, it cannot move or speak. It has never, as far as anyone can tell, had a single thought. And yet, the moment something starts eating it, it fights back. Not slowly, within minutes. It produces chemicals to make its leaves taste poisonous. It releases signals into the air that travel to neighboring trees, warning them before the threat even arrives. It summons predators to come and kill whatever is attacking it. It does all of this without a mind, which raises a question science has been quietly avoiding for a long time. If something can sense the world, remember it, respond to it, and warn others of its kind, at what point does the word awareness start to apply? Most people assume the answer is obvious. Plants are not aware. They're sophisticated biological machines. They're extraordinarily complex, yes, but still machines. They're just chemistry inside cells, no different in the end from a thermostat responding to temperature. That is the comfortable answer, because the moment you look closely at what plants actually do, the line between chemistry and something else begins to blur in ways that are generally difficult to explain away. In 2019, a team at the University of Wisconsin modified plants to produce a protein that glows whenever calcium moves through their cells. Calcium signaling is not a small detail. It is the same mechanism your neurons use. When you touch something hot, calcium floods through your nerve cells, carrying the signal from your fingertip to your brain. It is the electrical language of sensation. The researchers damaged a single leaf, then they watched. Within 90 seconds, a wave of light burst from the damaged tissue and traveled through the entire plant. Every undamaged leaf lit up in sequence, and those leaves began producing defense chemicals before anything had touched them. One part of the organism was hurt, the rest of it found out and responded. That is not rust forming on iron, that is something else. What triggered that wave was a compound called glutamate. In neuroscience, glutamate is one of the most important neurotransmitters in the human brain. It carries signals between neurons. It is foundational to sensation and memory. Plants do not have neurons, but they use glutamate, the exact same molecule, doing what appears to be the exact same job. When researchers blocked the glutamate receptors in plants, the wave stopped entirely. The rest of the plant received no warning at all. If the same chemical performs the same function in two completely different organisms, which is to transmit a damaged signal across a living body, then what exactly is the distinction we're drawing? The botanist who spent years trying to answer that question became one of the most controversial figures in modern plant science. The research was elegant, the scientific community's response was not. The experiment used Mimosa pudica, a plant whose leaves fall shut the instant you touch them. A device was built to drop the plants from a small height, not enough to damage them, just enough to trigger the folding every time. They were dropped repeatedly, dozens of times. The plants stopped folding. When a different stimulus was introduced, shaking, the leaves folded immediately. The mechanism was fully intact. The plants had specifically recognized that the drop was not a real threat and stopped responding to it. In neuroscience, this is called habituation. It is one of the most fundamental forms of learning, and it requires, by definition, the ability to store a past experience and use it to change future behavior. Skeptics suggested the plants had simply changed physically from the repeated drops, so the plants were stored for 28 days, giving them time to recover. Then they were dropped again. They still did not fold. They remembered. And it does not stop there. When a tree in a forest comes under insect attack, the trees around it begin producing defense chemicals. Trees with no physical contact with the damaged one, separated by dozens of meters, connected only through the air and through fungal networks spreading underground between their roots. Some researchers have stopped describing forests as collections of individual organisms competing for sunlight. They call it a network. When part of the network is hurt, the rest responds. You are standing inside that network every time you walk through a forest. Beneath your feet are connections older than most human civilizations. Above your head are organisms sensing, signaling, and responding in a language so different from ours that we spent most of history not realizing it was a language at all. And here comes the standard objection, and it's a fair one. None of this is consciousness, it is chemistry. There is no experience behind it. No one is inside a plant registering that something is happening to it, and that is almost certainly true. But we have said that before. We said insects could not feel pain, then we found that they have the same sensory cells that detect tissue damage in humans. We said fish could not feel pain, then research revealed the same neural pathways. the same stress hormones. The UK formally recognized fish as sentient in 2021. Every time we decided a living thing was too simple to experience anything, we eventually discovered we were measuring with the wrong instruments, looking for our version of experience and concluding that nothing else counted. The definition of pain has never been stable, it has moved every single time we looked carefully enough. And here's what makes this even harder to dismiss. Plants do all of this without neurons, without anything we recognize as a mind. Billions of cells processing information across an entire organism in a way science still does not fully understand. We built our entire idea of intelligence around one solution, the brain, and then we looked at something that does all of this without one and decided it does not count because it did not look familiar. The most honest thing we can say is this: plants sense the world, they respond to it, they communicate, they remember, they solve problems. We do not know whether any of it involves anything resembling experience, and we have a long, consistent history of deciding that living things are simpler than they are, right up until the moment we look closely enough. We still do not know what it means, we still do not know if there's anything it is like to be a plant. But every time we have looked more carefully at the living world, we have found it stranger, richer, and more unsettling than we were prepared for.